Good morning. Welcome to today's colloquium speech. It's my honor to introduce today's speaker, Professor David Miller from Penn State University. David has been kind of my old friend for a long while since we joined a lot of technical committee together in the middle of 90. He got his bachelor degree from Princeton University, then a master degree from UPenn, and a PhD degree from UC Santa Barbara. After that, he joined the Penn State in 1995. Since then, right now, he has been a full professor. He also got several good honors in the academia, including the National Science Foundation's Career Award. And also, he has been serving as an associate editor for transactional signal processing and also chairing some conferences. His research area is about machine learning, bioinformatics, network security, and along this line. So let's welcome Professor Miller to give a talk today.
Thank you very much, Sheng-Ning. It's a pleasure to be here in the Pacific Northwest. Just a little bit about my affiliation and the title. This work is joint work with my PhD student, Hussein Soleimani. This is some of his PhD thesis work. We're at the School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. This is the first time in a talk that I'm using the school designation because we just formed the school. Interestingly, you have two separate departments, EE and CSE, and you share the same building. We occupy different buildings about a quarter mile apart, and yet we're part of the same school. So we're a nascent school. We'll see how hopefully it turns out well. The other thing is that Penn State, people always, they ask me, are you in Philadelphia? The University of Pennsylvania, the Ivy League school is in Philadelphia. We're really in central Pennsylvania, and a little town with the not so interesting name of State College. It's called State College, Pennsylvania. Penn State started as an agricultural school, but now it's, of course, much more. The title of the talk is Parsimonious Topic Models. Parsimonious is kind of a fancy word. Parsimonious, you could mean, it essentially means sparing or miserly. Essentially, it means that we want to build cheap models. We don't want very expensive models, and sparing in the sense of the number of free parameters that they use. Okay, so we're building topic models. Our purpose is to model documents. Now, it's not clear to me about the background of the audience. So to kind of motivate things a little bit, I'm going to jump a little bit ahead in the talk. Fundamentally, what we're doing is this is pattern recognition, and we're doing clustering. And in traditional clustering, you have data that could be real valued. In this case, I have, in these four figure examples, I have two-dimensional data. I have two features, feature X and feature Y. Oops. Sorry about that. I have two features, feature X and feature Y. And, okay, that wants to jump ahead when I use the cursor. And I've got four clusters, clusters 1 through 4. And the goal is to group the data, to take feature vectors, in this case XY pairs, and group points together into what we call clusters. Now, it's very easy to do this in working with two-dimensional data. You can visually cluster quite easily. However, what makes the problem challenging is that typically the data is not two-dimensional. It may be very high-dimensional. And so you can't do visual clustering. Moreover, a priori, you don't know the number of clusters that are present in the data. Okay, and so this is fundamentally what we call the data clustering problem. Now, in this talk, our data points are actually documents. So you can imagine that we've got some kind of document database. The database could consist of news articles or blogs or emails. And we'd like to, and maybe I have tens or hundreds of thousands of them. And we would like to group together these news articles, find the underlying content that is on the same topic or on the same topics, okay? And so we're fundamentally addressing what we call document clustering. And in document clustering, typically the way that you model a document, you say you have a fixed dictionary. And for each document, you count the number of times each word occurs in that document. And that fixed vector of word counts, that's the feature vector. Just like in these examples, I have a two-dimensional feature vector. In the case of documents, I represent each document by its word counts over the entire dictionary. And so in doing so, I end up with we call this a bag of words representation. And it's typically a very high dimensional representation of a document because the dictionary for a given database could have 10,000, 20,000, or even 50,000 unique words in it, okay? And the number of words, that's the length of the data point. That's the length of the vector. So document clustering, we're clustering very, very high dimensional vectors, okay? And we're exploiting the nature of the data, the structure of the data, in building a clustering model, okay? So I've kind of motivated document clustering as a very high dimensional pattern recognition problem. And having done so now, I can go back to the structure of the slides. So we'll start out with a little introduction. So we assume that what we have, all that we're given is a collection of documents. And there's a number of unique words within those documents. Each document, document D might have LD words. And in total, there may be N unique words. And our goal is to cluster. I'm describing this as a clustering problem, but more generally, we want to identify the underlying topics that are present in the set of documents. Okay. And we can then represent the document by its proportion of the extent to which it belongs to each of the underlying topics. Okay. And I want to emphasize that this is an unsupervised learning problem. No one is telling us a priori, here are the topics that are present that may be present in these documents. We have to learn what topics are present in the database in a completely unsupervised fashion. Okay, now for modeling documents, sort of an older way of doing it was to suppose that for each document, there's a single topic that's present. And then really, the document modeling problem becomes a document clustering problem. For each document, I want to know, does it belong to this topic or does it belong to this topic? Which topic does it belong to? Okay. More recently, people proposed what are called topic models. And topic models allow multiple topics to be present within a given document. And that may more realistically capture the nature of the data. I'll identify these parameters, these alphas. Alpha JD is the proportion of topic J in document D, okay? And these proportions have to sum to 1 over a given document. They form a probability mass function for each document in the database. And for topic models, a key issue is what's the number, how many topics are there in the database? That number of topics we identify with the parameter M, okay? So here's an example of, here's an illustration of topic models. We have an article that we could say that there's one topic and the underlying topic is biological, okay? But actually, if you look more carefully, you can see that there I'll call them subtopics that are present in this article. One topic is, and again, this wants to move when I move the cursor. One topic looks like it deals with molecular biology. It has under the molecular biology topic, which I'm labeling, it has words gene and DNA and genetic that occur with relatively high frequencies. Okay, and another topic that's present seems to be more just generically biological. It has words like life and evolve and organism. A third topic seems to deal with neurology. It has words like brain, neuron, nerve. And a fourth topic seems to deal with computer science. Okay? And so this article seems to be a mixture of topics. Okay? And topic models, the whole point is to learn the underlying mixture of topics that's present for each article. Each article may have a different mixture of topics that well represents that article. Okay, so this is what you try to do with a topic model. Okay, mathematically, here's what a topic model looks like. When you talk about statistical models, fundamentally you define a stochastic data generation mechanism. You hypothesize how the data was generated. And for topic models, the way that you do this is you have a parameter nu, and the parameter nu is a sparsity parameter. And using this parameter based upon a Dirichlet distribution, you randomly generate the topic proportions. So we're talking about generating the words for a particular document D. The first thing you do is you generate the topic proportions, alphas. We generate the alphas. And then independently for each word, so word order is not important here, okay? Independently for each word, we first randomly choose a topic. I can't move the cursor. I can't use the cursor. It wants to change slides when I use the cursor. I apologize for that. Fundamentally, so for each word, we first choose a topic based upon the topic proportions, the alphas, and then given the chosen topic, which is denoted ZID, we randomly generate a word based upon the topic's distribution for the topic distribution, the topic conditional distribution over all the words. Okay, and so this is stochastic data generation for what's called the latent Dirichlet allocation model, which is a very popular topic model. And then we have the associated likelihood function, P of D given theta. And so we have an outer product over the documents, and then we have an integral. We integrate over the topic distributions. And then we generate each document with the product that we have here. Okay, and so this is the likelihood model for LDA. Now, LDA provides more flexible modeling than the older models that assume that there was only a single topic present in a given document. And so it provides more flexibility. It allows you to estimate that there are multiple topics that are present in a given document. But for that flexibility, there's a cost. And the cost is that there are several problems that are introduced. And it's the purpose of this talk to really address and resolve those problems associated with LDA and with related topic models. So the fundamental problem is this. Under LDA, for each topic, under each topic you have a distribution over all the words. And that distribution, for each word, you have a probability parameter. Okay? So if there are 20,000 words in the dictionary, I have 20,000 word parameters for each topic. Okay? Suppose I have a model with 50 topics. then I have 20,000 words times 50 topics. That's 1 million free parameters in my model, okay? My database may not have 1/10 of that number of documents in it. Or it may have more, but it may have far less. I may have only 5,000 documents, and I'm proposing a model that has 1 million free parameters in it. Does that seem like it makes a lot of sense? So it seems that would suggest there's a large potential for overfitting. Okay. Moreover, there's a fundamental issue of how do you determine the number of topics that are present in the model. Now, brief aside, there are model selection criteria, something called minimum description length, something called Bayesian information criterion. Fundamentally, what BIC and MDL do is it's an objective function that consists of penalty minus log likelihood. If I use more topics, the likelihood of the data increases. Okay, I have penalty minus log likelihood. So, and I want to minimize this cost function. So the negative likelihood term increases as I introduce more topics in the model. However, the model cost, the model penalty increases with the number of topics in the model. And it increases essentially linearly, because if I have 20,000 words, for every new topic that I introduce in the model, I have to pay for 20,000 new parameters. So if you can imagine, if I start out with a single topic in the model, that's the point on the left. I have a single topic in the model, and I have a certain bit cost. If I add a second topic to the model, the log likelihood increases, but the penalty increases. And the penalty increase is dramatically larger than the likelihood increase. And so as you can see, it looks as though the bit cost function increases roughly linear with the model order. And remember, what I want to do is I want to minimize the bit cost function. And so the solution in this case is to do what? It's to choose a single, it's to say that the database is represented by one topic. Does that make a lot of sense? No. So I call this is a fundamental failure of unstructured topic models and unstructured document clustering models for estimating the model order. They have no good way of choosing the model order. And in fact, LDA, the LDA algorithm does not specify the model order M. The model order M is a hyperparameter, and you're left to your own devices to choose that order. Okay? LDA doesn't have a way to choose it. If you apply standard model order selection methods to try to choose the model order, this is what will happen. What would you like to see? You'd like to see a curve that's convex, that has a minimum where as you increase the number of topics, the bit cost function decreases. At a certain critical model order, it's at its minimum, and then if you add too many topics, then you over-penalize the model and the bit cost increases again. You'd like to see a smooth kind of surface for this BIC as a function of model order. That does not happen with unstructured topic models like LDA. So what's our solution? Our solution to this problem, and the basic idea of the solution comes from an earlier paper that I wrote in 2006 with a fellow by the name of Michael Graham. The fundamental notion that we introduce is one of sharing parameters, okay? And we could say, well, many words are used similarly. Maybe they occur with the same frequency under different topics. If that's the case, why should they use the same, why do they require different parameters under different topics? Why can't they use the same parameter? Now again, I want to go to a visual aside to kind of introduce the concept of sharing. So in the upper left figure, we have 4 clusters, 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are Gaussian clusters. And ground truth, clusters 1, 2, 3, and 4, they have the same mean in the x direction. In the x direction, they have the same mean. In the y direction, the mean in the y direction is different, but they share the same mean in the x direction. That is, ground truth, the upper left example exhibits feature sharing, or sorry, parameter sharing. It shares ground truth. The same parameter is used for the mean in the x direction by all four components. Okay. Now on the right figure, alternatively, clusters 1 and 2, they share x, and clusters 3 and 4, they share y. Okay, so these are two examples that exhibit what we call feature sharing, or parameter sharing. Okay. Now in the lower two figures, what we're seeing the effect of a finite amount of a small amount of data versus a plentiful amount of data. You'll notice that clusters 1 and 2, their mean in the x direction is not the same, but it's actually quite similar. The mean in the x direction for clusters 1 and 2, they're different, but they're close. Okay, and it turns out that if I want to estimate the proper, using BIC, using Bayesian information criterion, if I want to estimate the proper model order and recognize that there's a third cluster here, then it is very helpful, it's essential for me to assume that clusters 1 and 2 share the mean parameter. By doing so, I reduce the model complexity cost because I have fewer parameters in the model. And then I'm free to introduce a third cluster that represents the points to the right of the number 3 there. Okay, so in this example, when the amount of data is fairly small, parameter sharing is very useful for estimating the proper model order. In this case, estimating that there are 3 clusters. Now, if I have a lot more data, then I don't need for clusters 1 and 2 to share parameters. They can use different mean parameters. Those mean parameters are not exactly the same. They're slightly different from each other. But I can get away with that because I have a lot more data. Okay, so when your data set size is not that large, parameter sharing can be extremely beneficial in estimating the proper model order. Okay, so now I've kind of motivated the notion of parameter sharing. Now we want to consider parameter sharing for topic models. And so what that means is for a given word n, the dashed box means that the probability parameter for that word is shared across topics. Okay, and if it's an open box, it means that the probability parameter for that word is distinct for that topic. There's a distinct parameter. There's a parameter that's topic specific for that word, for that topic. Okay, and so we can see that there are certain words that they always use a shared representation. Essentially, those words are being feature down selected. Those by all the topics. None of the topics find that these words are very important. These words are used with the same frequency under all topics. Okay. Whereas some other words, they could be topic specific. They could use topic specific probability parameters for some words and shared probabilities for other words. Okay. So for example, if I have the word quarter, quarter can mean the unit of currency. It can also mean a period, the third quarter of an economic cycle, of a basketball game. And we can imagine that for words, for the different meanings of words, under different meanings, those words may occur with different frequencies. Okay, so it could be that when it could be that the shared model represents the meaning of the word quarter, it's the coin, the currency. Okay, and the topic-specific probabilities may occur under topics that correspond to say, economic articles where you talk about the third quarter, or sports articles where you talk about, say, third quarter of a basketball game. Okay. So words, for each word, we're going to it's either going to be it's going to have a topic-specific parameter under a given topic, or it's going to have a parameter. It's going to use a shared parameter across all topics or across a subset of the topics. So this is a kind of parsimony that we're going to introduce into our model. Okay. Now, in addition to word sparsity in topics, we also want to have topic sparsity in documents. In LDA, in principle, every topic is present in every document. Now, it could have a small topic proportion, but still, in general, you find that when you learn LDA models, that there are a significant number of topics that have presence, that have non-zero topic proportions in given articles. Okay, and well, it certainly may be the case that multiple topics are present, but if I have 50 topics, I would hope that maybe only two or three of my 50 topics are present in any given document. So in addition to having word sparsity in topics, we'd also like to have topic sparsity in documents. Okay. So there are two types of sparsities that we introduce. One is word sparsity in topics. The other is topic sparsity in documents. And what comes next is really based upon a paper that was published in IEEE Transactions of Knowledge and Data Engineering just this year, although we did the work around 2013. And basically, what I'm going to do now is not in great detail, but I'm going to summarize a mathematical derivation of a novel BIC objective function that allows us to learn parsimonious topic models. And now, in order to make things simpler, we have to first make things more complicated. So what I mean by that is the original LDA model has two kinds of parameters. It has the topic proportions. For each document, it has topic proportions. And for each topic, it has a probability distribution over all the words. Okay. Now, we're going to introduce more parameters. And you might say to yourself, well, how does that make things less complex? It sounds like you're going to create a more complex model if you're going to have all the parameters that you had before, plus you're going to have new parameters. But actually, we're going to introduce new parameters that basically indicate whether the original parameters are used or not. Okay? So we're going to introduce binary switch parameters, binary switch variables. And UJN is binary, and UJN is 1 if word n is modeled topic specifically by topic j. And it's 0 otherwise. And so if UJN is 1, I need a probability parameter for word n under topic j. And if UJN is 0, I don't have that parameter. So here you can see where the sparsity and parsimony is coming in. If many UJNs are 0, I'm getting rid of many of the real valued probability parameters associated with these topics. Okay. So for the probability of word n under topic j, we have pjn to the UJN power times p0 of n. P0 of n is a shared parameter, shared probability parameter, times p0 of n to the 1 minus uj of n. And so we're selecting. One of these is going to be, we're going to either use the topic-specific parameter or the shared parameter, depending upon this binary switch. And we have a probability mass function constraint under topic j. Under topic j, I must have a probability mass function. And so this constraint must be met. Okay. And notice that the UGN, I don't know which word should be topic specific and which one should not be topic specific a priori. I have to learn this. And this is purely unsupervised learning, okay? And we'll see how these switches get learned soon. Now, as I said, we have two types of sparsity, so we have two types of binary parameters. We also have binary parameters that indicate for each document whether topic J is active or not, okay? So if VJD is equal to 1, that means topic J is active in document D. And if VJD is 0, it's not present. It's not active in document D. And again, we have a probability mass function constraint. For each document, over the set of active topics for that document, we have to sum, the alphas have to sum to 1. So we have a valid probability mass function on the topic proportions for each document. Okay. So these are two PMF probability mass function constraints on our learning. Okay, so we've introduced new parameters here. We have U parameters and V parameters, and we can kind of dichotomize the parameter set into two types. One we call the structural parameters. The U's, the V's, and M we call the structural parameters of our model. They specify what's active and what's not active in terms of word probabilities and in terms of topics present in documents. And then we have the topic parameters. We have the usual parameters, the alpha JDs, the topic proportions. We have the word probability parameters, PJs. But again, some of these are not going to be present because their switches are not on. Okay. And then we have our shared model parameters, P0. Okay, and so given the structural parameters fixed, here's the data likelihood of our model. The way that you can understand this is, again, through understanding the stochastic data generation mechanism. We we have two products. Those products means that we're generating things independently. We first generate we're going to generate each document independently. And then to generate a document, we're going to independently generate each of the words. That's why we have the product from I equal 1 to LD. And then what we do is we select one of the active topics based upon the alphas. And then given that selected topic, we randomly generate a word, either using the topic-specific probabilities or the shared probabilities, depending upon which are active for that topic's model. Okay, and we seek a unified framework for jointly learning the structural parameters and the model parameters. Now, the naive BIC criterion looks like this. It's the penalty. As I said before, it's penalty minus log likelihood. The penalty is in the naive standard BIC form is 1/2 k log of n, where k is the number of free parameters in the model, and n is the number of data samples in the model. Sorry, n is the number of data samples in the data set. We have two types of parameters. We have alphas and p's, the topic proportions and the word probabilities under topics. And we didn't feel it was suitable, it was appropriate to just kind of naively plug into BIC. That would not lead to the proper model cost for our model that has these two different types of parameters. And so we mathematically derived a BIC criterion for our model. And I'm not going to go into full details of that, but I'll kind of summarize how we do that. So basically what you want to do is we want to maximize the model posterior. And the model posterior is proportional to the likelihood of the data given the structural parameters times the prior probability of the structural parameters. And the marginal likelihood, the likelihood PD given H, it can be written as an integral where it's based upon the probability distribution of the parameters, P of theta given H. Okay, and again, P of H is the model prior. And when you have these types of integrals, the standard approach is to introduce what's called Lipolysis approximation. And essentially, we invoke a second-order Taylor series expansion. Okay, and when we do that, we end up with the likelihood. Basically, we assume that P at D given H, P theta given H is peaked somewhere, and then we can approximate the integral with a second-order Taylor series expansion around its peak. Okay. And there are some technical details that I'm going to skip here, but fundamentally what we do see here is that this is the integral of a scaled multivariate Gaussian density function. And so this integral simply becomes 2 pi to the k over 2 times the Hessian matrix raised to the negative 1/2 power. Okay? And k is the number of free parameters, which in our model, we count up the number of free parameters. We count up the number of active topic proportions in each document, and we count up the number of word probabilities that are active in each topic, and we add all those up, and we get the number of free parameters in our model. Okay. So now we still have to figure out what the Hessian is here. So we have several terms that are undetermined at this point. We have the log of the Hessian, and we have the log of the prior probability on the structural parameters. Okay, and in what follows, we determine both of these. So to determine the Hessian, we just take the second partial derivative with respect to the model parameters. And if you do that, I'm not showing this, the full technical details, but what you see is you get VJD times LD times the Fisher information matrix term. Okay, and if you again take the second derivative of a word probability, you get UJN times what I call LJ bar times a Fisher information matrix term. Okay, and the key thing here is to notice that LD is the number of words in the document, in document D, and LJ bar is the total number of words in the documents where topic J is active. Okay, and if you think about it, alpha JD, if you think about the stochastic data generation, there are LD words, and alpha JD is estimated based upon these LD words. So LD is the effective sample size for alpha JD. And PJ of n is estimated based upon considering all the words in documents where topic J is active. And so LJ bar is the effective sample size used to estimate PJ of n. And so the effective, and remember the BIC is k over 2 log of n, where log is the sample size, minus the log likelihood of the data. It's penalty minus log likelihood, k over 2 log of the sample size. Well, what we're seeing here is for the two different parameter types in our model, there are two different effective sample sizes, and our model complexity cost reflects that properly. Okay, and so plugging that in, we get that the 1/2 log of the determinant is the expression that's given on the right-hand side here. And so where we have different effective sample sizes for alpha JD parameters and for the probability parameters, the PJ of n parameters. Okay, and so we're going to plug this determinant expression, this log determinant expression, into our BIC cost function. Okay, and then if going back, well, remember I had two terms that were undefined. One term was 1/2 log of the determinant of the Hessian matrix. We just determined that. We also have the log of the prior probability on model structures. Okay, we still have to specify that within our model. And the way that we do that is we essentially use the principle of uninformativeness. How do we choose a prior distribution on U and V? Well, we're going to assume that P of U, V is P of U. First of all, we're going to assume U and V are independent. So we're going to have P of U times P of V. Okay. And then second of all, how do we determine P of V? Well, the way that we're going to determine both P of U and P of V is by assuming uninformativeness, essentially invoking a uniform distribution. Okay? So the way that we determine the prior probability on the V switches is we suppose the following stochastic generation. We suppose that the number of topics is uniformly, the number of topics that are active is uniformly distributed between 1 and m. So here we get 1 over m. Okay? And then which topics, how many ways are there for each topic, for MD topics to be active amongst M topics? They're M choose MD. Okay? And so this is how we get our prior distribution on V switches. And for the U switches, we're going to consider all possible configurations with, at most, the N0 topic-specific words over all topics. And that number is given by this combinatorial expression. Okay? And it turns out that when N0 is much smaller than Mn, that this can be well approximated by this expression, which is written in terms of Shannon's entropy function. Okay? And so again, without going into too much technical detail, we have an expression for the prior probability on the U switches. Okay? Which and we take the log of that, and we end up with this expression. And so with these prior distributions on the U switches, on the V switches, we now have collected all the terms in our bit cost function. Okay? And then now we have our bit cost function. We want to minimize our bit cost function in choosing the structural parameters and the model parameters. Okay? And one thing that we want to notice is that the model parameters, they only appear in the data log likelihood term. They don't appear in any of the other terms. Okay? And so to minimize BIC with respect to the model parameters, the thetas, we can simply maximize the log likelihood with respect to the model parameters. And that will be equivalent to minimizing BIC with respect to the model parameters. Okay? So our learning algorithm for minimizing this BIC cost function consists of iterations of several steps. Essentially, we have an E step. This cost function is amenable to what's called the expectation maximization algorithm. This is a standard method for learning parameters when you have learning parameters consistent with maximizing likelihoods, or in this case, maximizing a penalized likelihood function. Okay, and in the EM algorithm, you treat some data as hidden. In our case, what's hidden is we don't know which topic generated a given word in a given document. And so the underlying topic that was used to generate a given word, this is what's hidden and what we treat as hidden data. And in the EM algorithm, in the E step, you compute the expected value of the hidden data. Okay? And the expected value of a binary indicator variable that says which topic generated a given word, the expected value of that binary variable is a probability. It's a probability. So in the E step, we compute the probability that topic J generated word I in document D. And we do that for all words, for all documents, and overall topics. That's the E step. And in the M step, we have two sub-steps. We estimate parameters given the structure fixed, and then we optimize the structure given the parameters fixed. Okay? And so we break down the parameter optimization into optimizing the model parameters, the thetas, and optimizing the model structure. Okay, and I can skip some of the details here. They're pretty straightforward, pretty standard. So in the E step, we compute the probability that topic J generated word WID. Okay, and then in the M step, we use the E step quantities in re-estimating our topic proportions and in re-estimating our word probabilities. And P naught, we don't re-estimate. P naught, we learn once at the outset. It's a shared model. We learn it once using all the data, and then we keep it fixed. We don't re-estimate P naught, although you could potentially do that as well. And for the U and V switches, we don't have any sophisticated optimization procedure. We simply cycle through them. Okay? We cycle through the U and V switches one at a time, choosing the binary level that is consistent with minimizing BIC. Okay? And we cycle through these U and V switches until nothing wants to change. We keep decreasing the bit cost by alternating, cycling through the UV switches, optimizing them one at a time, cycle through until nothing wants to change. And then we go back up and go back up and do another E step and do another M step. So we iteratively apply E and M steps, and we do that until nothing wants to change, and the algorithm converges. Now, there's also something very important that I didn't talk about. Our approach also directly allows us to estimate the model order M. The point is that our BIC cost function is a function of M, and so we can minimize BIC with respect to everything, with respect to all the probability parameters, the U and V switches, and with the model, and with respect to the model order M. The way that we determine the model order is we start by over-specifying the model order. We start from some maximum order, M max. Okay, and M max is chosen to be larger than the number of topics that we expect to be present in the database. And then what we do is we learn the model at each model order M, and then the topics that have the smallest probabilities, we eliminate those topics. And we remove topics, a fixed number of topics at each step. We can remove them one at a time, or two at a time, or five at a time, depending upon how computationally efficient we want to get. And so we start above the expected true topic order, and we sweep out a BIC curve, optimizing the model at each model order, and we're going to pick the order that gives the smallest BIC cost function. Okay, here's, we have two performance measures for our model. One is basically held out log likelihood. We hold out some documents from the database, and we learn the model on the training set, and we evaluate the fit on the test set. And a second measure is most of these databases have class labels, and so we find out how consistent the topics are with class labels. Essentially, we use our topic model to classify documents, and we have some either classification accuracy or precision recall that we can use in characterizing class label consistency. Here's one database that's called OSIMED. It's a medical domain. There are 34,389 documents. There are more than 12,000 unique words. And there are multiple class labels for each document. So there are roughly 2.26 class label topics that have been ground truth claimed to be present in each, on average, in each of these documents. We started from 150 topics, and we reduced the number of topics at each step by 5. Okay, and we repeated our learning for different parameter initializations. We find that our learning is not very sensitive to initialization, probably because, again, we start from way above the true model order, and then we eliminate poorly chosen topics along the way. For this data set, the BIC minimum is at m stars equal to 100. Now here we see the BIC curve. Notice the BIC curve has this very nice shape. Okay, it's not this straight line that says choose the minimum at one topic. It's got a smooth convex shape, and the minimum is close to m equals 100 topics. And we compare our model with LDA and with another sparse topic model called STC. And you can notice that for both performance measures, for all model orders M, varied from 150 down to 20, we have both better data held out likelihood fit, much better held out likelihood fit of the data, and we have much better classification accuracy as measured by ROC area under the curve based on precision and recall. Okay, and the other point is, and remember, LDA doesn't have a way of choosing the model order M, and so LDA we see its performance curve. Our method does have a way of choosing the model order. We choose m equals 100. If we look just at 100, our held out log likelihood and our classification accuracy at m equals 100 is better than LDA's at all model orders. Okay, so there's significant gain in performance that comes from introducing sparsity or parsimony into the modeling. Now, I told you that for Osimed, there were roughly 2.26 classes present in each document. How many topics do we find that are on average present in each document? We find 1.91. LDA finds on average 10.35 topics present for each document. So the number of topics on average that we find is pretty consistent with the number of classes that someone has ground truth labeled and said to be present in each document. And this kind of suggests that our topics are very similar. They closely resemble the classes that someone has labeled, that a human being has labeled. Okay. The other thing you can see is n bar is the average number of words that are topic specific, okay, in each topic. And we have a comparable number of average number of topic-specific words, but we have far fewer topics that are active in a given document than LDA. And so that means that for a given document, we have far fewer topic-specific words than LDA does. That means we're focusing on, we think that there are a smaller number of words that are informative and meaningful in any given document. Here's results on the 20 newsgroups database. This is a bigger database. There are more than 54,000 unique words. In this case, we started from 100 topics, and at each step for our algorithm, we eliminated 2 topics. Rather than 5, we eliminated 2 at each elimination step. And again, we eliminated the topics with the smallest probability masses at each step. In this case, we found a BIC minimum at 32. That may be a little bit low just looking at the shape of the curve, okay? But our BIC minimum is at 32. In this case, at some point, as you increase the number of topics, LDA does achieve better held out log likelihood when you go up to around 70 topics. And it does achieve a little bit better class label consistency when you choose a large number of topics, 70. But notice we're saying that we're estimating that the true number of topics present in this database is 32. Okay, and at 32, our held out log likelihood and our class label consistency are significantly higher than LDA's. And in 20 newsgroups, only 1 class is present in each newsgroup article. And notice the number of topics present on average in a given document for our model is 1.19. So again, 1 class present, 1.19 topics on average present in a given document, there seems to be some consistency between the number of topics that we select to be present and the number of classes that are present as labeled by a human being. And here are some examples. The thing that you want to notice is that LDA chooses, some of its top words include article and right. And this is, the topic is presumably a medical topic. And you'll notice that article and right are shared words in our model. So we don't deem them to be topic specific. And on its face, it doesn't look like they really are topic specific because this is a medical article. And so the other article and right kind of stand out as not really belonging to what we would think of as topic specific words. And our model pulls them out and considers them to be shared. And here are results for the Reuters news articles database. 16,000 unique words. Again, we initialized at 100 topics, and we found the BIC minimum to be at 42. And again, we get significantly better performance than the other methods, both in terms of held out log likelihood and in terms of class label consistency. Okay, and BIC minimum is at 42 topics in this case. And finally, and again, what I'll say is the number of Reuters. In fact, I don't recall whether Reuters has multiple labels per article or it was single label. If it's a single label, then it's consistent with our results that we get around one topic present per document. If it's a single label that's present for Reuters. Finally, you can apply this to images as well. All that you need is to create what you call a visual bag of words. Okay. In this case, for this data set that's called Label Me, you have images, you extract SIFT descriptors, and then you do clustering on SIFT descriptors. And then each of the clusters is essentially you treat as a word. And there are 158 clusters. And so there are effectively 158 unique words. And each of the SIFT vectors, you assign it to a cluster. And there are more than 2,000 SIFT descriptors per image. And so we have a bag of words representation with, in this case, 158 word clusters, if you will, okay, for what's called the Label Me image data set. And that allows us to, again, apply topic models to image data. And again, we achieve very, very nice results compared with LDA and compared with STC, both in terms of held out log likelihood and in terms of class label consistency. On this data set, we found that the best number of topics was 48. Okay, so overall, we in terms of objective performance measures, we see that overall there's better performance by PTM over LDA. We have certainly much sparser representation, both in terms of the number of words that are topic specific, and in the number of topics that are active in a given document. Okay. And if I want to think about extensions of this work, both LDA and our model, they ignore word order. The model is what we call exchangeable. So the word order doesn't matter, it doesn't affect the results. There are some works that have extended LDA using things like Markov models to try to capture word order. We could try to apply our framework within that setting and improve our results. So I'm happy to take questions.
Question? Any question? I got a quick one. Instead of using the temporal order of the appearance of those words, how about some kind of distance to something? That will be much easier. For example, people use kernel for representing the distance to some specific word and use that distance be part of your representation. Will that help?
That could help. But we haven't, in our model, we haven't even considered word order. And neither does LDA. Word order is not considered in these models.
Okay. Yes?
Question. When you have words with shared frequencies across different topics, you say that for some of the topics they're shared and for the others they're independent. But as you pointed out, there could be different clusters, right? So a quarter could mean something in one setting and another thing in another setting. Do you model that or not?
Okay, first I have to try to repeat the question. Are you asking whether our model captures different word meanings?
No, a given word may have two different, so as I understand, your model just has a label which tells whether a particular word is topic sensitive or topic insensitive. But it could, in general, have a topic cluster for which it has the same frequency, another topic cluster for which it has the same frequency.
So this is a good question. I think what fundamentally your question is, do you have multiple shared model representations? And certainly this is something that we obviously thought about. It's not implemented within our setting. It is certainly possible to conceive that there should be multiple shared representations. Philosophically, our approach uses the shared representation as kind of like we could call it the generic representation. We could call it, some people might call it the garbage model. Okay, it should capture words that are not very meaningful, like maybe some adverbs after articles, and so these words that are captured, these words are well modeled by a single universal shared model. Now, certainly it may be the case that you have multiple meanings for words, and I'm associating word meaning with word frequency, which itself is questionable. But conceptual, just to give you the conceptual idea, certainly it's possible that you could have multiple shared representations. One subset of topics uses one representation, another uses a second representation. That's a very good suggestion. We haven't investigated that.
All right, if no more questions, let's give Dr. Miller another big hand.